But I like on a similar thing with since we were talking about confessions, like at an old parish I used to go to, I had asked the priest, uh, can I get a confession after Tuesday or after Sunday Mass? Because I wasn't able to make it on Saturday. He only had 1 hour, and it said, on the website it goes 1 hour by appointment, and so I this was like a decade ago, like, and I asked him, all right, so can I meet after Sunday? And he's like, sure, just meet me at the confessional, and we'll do it. And so I meet him there. Well, I'm there after Mass. So I go to Mass. I don't receive the Eucharist. I go to the confessional. He is not there. And I see him walk into the hallway. And I go, oh, hey, Father, the confession. And he's like, oh, well, can we like do this Tuesday? And I'm like, no, like I absolutely need to do it now. And he's like, like, I mean, he literally made like a sound, and I was like, we're in the hallway, nobody's coming, we can do it right now. And so we did it, and it was the quickest confession I've ever done. Somebody could have, even though I didn't see anybody, somebody could have walked in on us. It was very sloppy, and it didn't reflect the position of his office. Like, the way he handled it was very, like, because it wasn't like he was going to someone who's like sick in the hospital or something. Like, he didn't say anything like that. It was like he had to meet somebody else to talk about something, not to do a sacrament. And so it was like, well, which one's more important? Not to mention, like, you agreed to do this with me. So it was very much a mishandling of his duties.
No, I completely understand that. And I think that's kind of leads into another issue is priests and religious making you feel like you're a burden. I know as somebody who's worked in the private sector and, now runs my own company, you get asked to do things and you're expected to do them, right? It's not like, I get an order through my business online and go, well, that seems really inconvenient, so I'm just not going to do it. And I think that a lot of times you find priests that make you feel like, and of course they're busy and they're human beings, but it's like, look, if you're trying to bring people to Christ, the moments where they want to come to confession should be the most important moments for you outside of maybe the mass and like last rites. Like this is where you interact with the sinner and you bring them back to Christ.
Absolutely. Like, I've never understood the laxity when it comes to confession. Like, you'd think that confession would be the most done sacrament by the priest, not the mass, not handing out hopefully handing out the Eucharist in relation to how many people go to confession, but like, you would think that confession would be the thing that eats up the most time, and that just doesn't seem to be the case.
100%. I agree.
I have another example. Sorry, I did my example. So
No, that's okay. I think another thing that does so we've covered priests acting in a more feminine manner. We've covered priests being annoyed with you at the sacraments. Um, I think another thing with priests in general is lack of preparedness. I'll see homilies a lot of times where I know the priest didn't prepare or speeding through the mass. I'm lucky enough to have I don't do the traditional Latin mass, but I do the Novus Ordo. But I have a priest, we have an altar rail. Most people kneel for communion and receive on the tongue. I'm not saying that you can't do that, receive in the hand, but um, there is a sense of reverence to it. And I know that I've definitely been to masses where it feels like I've had one where a priest said, and we're down here in South Louisiana. He said, "Well, we got to get out of here for the Saints game because they might be going to the Super Bowl. So, God love you, dot dot dot," and then like skim through the homily in like 4 sentences.
Wow. I mean, like, I remember going to, what is it? I remember going to Michigan State up here in Michigan. So just to give a geographical location of where we are. And there's the priest there was the chaplain for the Spartan football team and basketball team. And so when we would have games, like, it would fill up the entire city. But he never made the homily suffer because of it. And he's also the priest at my wedding. Right. So like he, I know him pretty well. He's a really solid priest, and it is really unfortunate when priests kind of rely on secular entertainment to justify not talking about the gospel, because that's why the homily is there. It's for them to talk about the gospel and relay it on an individual scale. Well, I don't say individual scale, but like a subsidiarity way to the population that they're working with.
Sure.
So, or not working with, but the family, the congregation. So, the Saints game. That's just.
No, yeah, that's all good. I think another thing that I would say in the positive corner is all you really have to do as a priest. And I think back on the priest that I really respected, and maybe there was a priest. I'm going to talk about him a little bit. He passed recently. Monsignor Mouton was who I grew up with in Lafayette, and Monsignor Mouton was the most dry man. Like, he talked like Jeremy Irons, kind of, and just had that, or Ben Stein, like, had just that real dry delivery. Was very like rigid about the way the mass was done. I was an altar server under him, and the experience was nerve wracking. He was not personable in any way. As far as like quote unquote pastoral care, he failed at it epically. But we knew for a fact, and this was just something that had spread throughout the parish. He never said this, but that he prayed for each and every one of his parishioners by name every day, from 4 o'clock to 6:15 when he got up for mass, every single day. We knew that when the hurricanes hit, that he still celebrated daily mass, and he went there to the church even if nobody was there. We knew that he was committed. He ran the school, he ran everything, a very, very tight ship, and we knew that he was intimately involved in what was going on. And knowing that your priest is praying for you, that they're praying their hours, that they're going to their holy hour, that they're hearing confessions, you can get away with being a miserable person in some sense if your parishioners know that you're walking the walk. I mean, just knowing that you say, "Hey, I'm a priest and I do a holy hour every day." It's like you can get away with a lot. I'm not saying get away like illegal things or doing something wrong or whatever, but if your priest cares about you, and you know that they are legitimate about what they're doing, then your word carries so much more weight than if you're light and fluffy and airy or funny or whatever, but you don't actually walk the walk that you're expecting other people to do. And I think for priests to know that we're not expecting you to be perfect, we're just expecting you to be intellectually honest and try. There was a priest that I knew that I went to confession to this man, and he was on the other end. He was kind of a soft-spoken guy, older guy, and I went to confession to him, and he was very understanding and very sweet. But he told me something, and it stuck with me, and it helped me actually get over certain kind of repeated sins that I had. Is he said, "John, I used to smoke, and I was about 100 pounds heavier than I am now. And changing that took me about 6 years." And he said, and it was just going every day, falling and picking myself back up. But because the man, and you know, I'm saying this as just like in his temporal virtues, you know, had clearly gotten over vices, it made it easier for me to listen to what he was saying. And I think that, you know, there are a lot of priests that don't walk the walk, and so they can't give you situations like that. They can't tell you, "Hey, you know, through virtue and perseverance, you know, you can achieve X, like, look at me," because you can't look at them. Um, and so I'm not sure quite how to, like, coherently state that other than you can also get away with a lot, messing up a lot, if we can see that you're having a concerted effort. Like, knowing that that priest had lost 100 pounds and quit smoking through prayer and fasting and, you know, physical perseverance did a lot for me to listen to him in the confessional.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. They're walking the walk, which means they're not only saying and preaching this stuff, but they're living it, and they've had to live it through some pretty serious stuff.
Well, sure. I think that that would be like the testimonial of anybody who is famous for doing something else that requires a lot of effort. Like any form of athlete that comes out and tells you, you know, follow your dreams and work hard every day, you know, and you see them win an Olympic gold medal, you're much more likely to listen to that person than, you know, some random person on the street telling you that. Um, and I think that that's part of Christ's call, and that's probably one of the hardest things about his moral teachings is that he says, well, you know, when you give, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, or vice versa, whichever hand doesn't know about the other hand. Um, but people will know you're Christian by your love, by your actions. And those actions are all the things, everything that you are calling people to do, the more you strive to do them, the more people will listen to you and take you seriously.
I get what you're saying. The priest being able to be honest and show his flaws, and even if he still has flaws, how he's able to overcome them and had overcome them with grace is, I think, a very good clinch to, you know, trust a priest. And I'm not saying it's like a trick or anything. It's just human nature. Like, I share with you something deeply personal. This is how I overcame it. Oh, I'm also your spiritual father, and I'm telling you these things. And oh, by the way, they do work. Like,